I will never know my real name, nor who my parents are. I was raised by the mystics of Oolong when my parents, who were probably refugees in one of the numerous wars that ravaged my country, were either killed or fled to the countryside without me. While I did not know it at the time, the holy men who raised me were not holy men as you might know them. They were a band of priests who descended from the Thuggee or assassin cult, who traveled the highways and robbed from the rich and gave the money to the poor. Such cults were common in the times before the Red Revolutions and, as you can see, spread their philosophy to the red tide and the red hand. I coated myself in gold, as it is a perfect conductor and sealant to encase my Yan Jin psychic alchemy. From the moment I was born, I was taught to spot weakness and strike at it, to sense wealth and scheme how to steal from it. Of course, those who we robbed and stole from took steps to capture us, and frequently, we would have to take to hiding in the countryside until the threat had passed. On one such occasion, we were being pursued by police of the imperialists, and we fled into the caves of Chulan. As the soldiers pursued us, we headed deeper and deeper into the caves until finally, we discovered that the caves opened into huge chambers. We were not in a cave, but we were in a tomb. Thousands of terracotta soldiers guarded the treasure of an ancient warlord. At first, we were terrified and awestruck by what we found, but eventually, we realized that we had come upon a fortune greater than our imaginings. However, unlike the holy men who accompanied me, I saw the treasure as the teachings etched on the wall, while they saw the treasure as the gold and jewels and baubles which adorn the statues and rooms within. In the endless days of pillaging the tomb, I learned to read the inscriptions, and as I began to pronounce them out loud, I noticed a power coming over me. The clay soldiers actually began to move as I spoke, and I realized that what appeared to be solid clay soldiers were actually an ancient form of automaton, that I should learn the language and the spells well enough. These soldiers could be trained to do my bidding. Certainly, their weapons were ancient, or so I thought at the time, but the principles I learned from the ancient wisdom were eternal. I learned first from the carved text, and then from the masters I was able to summon how to summon the energy of the universe, channel it into grand strategy, and then broadcast it to troops and enemies alike. In short, I learned Yang Jin, the ability to channel energy into thought, into energy, into matter. The symbol I wear on my head, a jagged yin-yang symbol, is a symbol of Yan Jin. It is the martial art of meditation. It reproduces the circular saw blade with which I use thought to cut through my enemies like a razor blade. Early in my studies, I learned that it was necessary for me to keep the secrecy of my discovery, so I was led to destroy the base cultists I had traveled with. For being men of low chakra, I had little hope that they would either understand the new path or follow it. Even if they did, for despite their fundamental wickedness, they were too spiritually evolved at the time for me to control them. However, they did serve as an interesting opportunity to practice the art of turning enemies against each other. I was able to suggest to them that they had a traitor in their midst and cause each of them to kill each other until only one was left, who I killed. Such was my rite of passage into killing, for they had not trained me in their assassin arts. However, the skills they taught me in observing human weakness were greatly beneficial. I now lived alone amidst the spirits and the dead, alone to study and to conquer. I played the forbidden game of strategy, forbidden to all, save those who were to grow to be emperors, but for some reason, one that I can only guess at even now, the spirits had decided that I would be the emperor. The first step to becoming a great commander is to learn to defer all gratification. Once again, having grown up with the holy men, I had an advantage on this score because I was the last to eat and the last to sleep. I had learned the techniques of turning hunger into energy and to survive for great periods without sleep. I had learned to turn the hallucinations that come with deprivation into a forceful creative tool. The next thing I had to learn was singleness of purpose. That purpose always is to achieve victory. While there are many different manifestations of victory, there's really only one determinant of victory, and that is breaking the enemy's willingness to fight. Often in long dialogues with the spirits, we discussed will. Man's ability to force himself to do those things he doesn't want to do. I studied the art of reading the minds of other humans to know what are those things they cannot or will not live without. Those things they desire and those things that they fear. I learned to pull the levers of human desire to force men to work in my interests. I learned, too, that the army that was buried in the cave, only 6,000, was to be my elite guard, but that real conquest would come only when I had subjugated the hearts and minds of millions more. I need not talk at length about my military exploits because they have been written about by many others and will be studied for centuries to come, and I've already written of them in my book of victory, which is available to all who want to read it. Of course, it is only half of the truth. The other half of the truth is to be found hidden in the shadows of the statements that I make in that book, and will never be divulged by me, because divulging the forbidden knowledge would enrage the spirits, and they would torment me to the point of death. For that is the pact I made with them, unwittingly. As they taught me the arts of breaking the will of other men to fight, they also learned my weaknesses, and when they sense I am straying from the true path, they shriek at me like banshees. When I am doing their will, they will fill my body with unnatural power, such a great power that it can be seen by other men. It is true to say that I had great victories, but it is untrue to say that I ever suffered defeats. For never did I lose a battle that was winnable. When a battle is not winnable, no matter what the outcome, it cannot be called a defeat. It is called a submission to inevitability. Also, it is important to understand the difference between a conqueror and a governor. I have conquered all of the lands that I set my sights on, but, like Alexander the Great, I had no interest in governing them. Peacetime for me is nothing more than a time between wars. In all my battles, there's one thing I missed, and that was an adversary who is worthy of my attention. Yes, many times they had superior weaponry or technology, but never did they have a commander of my stature. So I searched the world for one. One creature who, like myself, a creature of darkness, a creature of the caves, interested me. He was Batman. Even as I learned my lessons in the caves of Chulong where my enemies were hidden, Batman would be a worthy adversary. And once this was decided, all that remained was planning my battle against him. It would have been artless to simply deploy an army to Gotham City, not to mention the fact that it would have diffused the battle I wanted to have, because I would have met military resistance. No, I decided that true art would be to grow my own army with which to fight Batman. For months, I studied him and his city. For months, I plotted. Then the revelation came. Like all revelations or profound insights, it was obvious when it came. I would build an army of Batman's natural enemies, criminals. It was in many ways perfect. Basic Yanjin techniques dictates that criminals are among the easiest people to manipulate because they often lack the ability to control their impulses and thus are susceptible to suggestion. Curiously, this is true of the brilliant criminals as well as the stupid ones. I knew, however, that I had to appear to be an insider to them, so I arranged my capture by American forces and manipulated my captors to take me to Arkham Asylum, convincing them that I was an insane criminal and thus worthy of observation in that facility. Once there, I began sussing out the different villains who would suit my plan. The process was arduous, but I finally came up with 3 perfect candidates: Scarecrow, Clayface, and Bane. Then, with the unwitting help of the staff there, I was able to begin working my mental powers on the criminals in Stormgate Prison. It was quite easy, really. Criminals always wanted to escape. What they lacked is what I effortlessly provide, and that was an escape plan. Of course, my plan was simple because simple plans are all that such men are capable of understanding. It called for simultaneous uprising of all prisoners at the moment of shift change. It required the sacrifice of some, but such men are expendable.